Today's guest is Watson Grover. Watson had a near-death experience after being in a head-on collision. And today we're going to learn all about his experience. Watson, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited to be here.
All right, well, let's get right to it. I guess we could start right before your car accident and go from there.
Okay. How my car accident happened. It was snowing. There was about 5 inches of snow on the ground, and I was using my GPS or my Google Maps to deliver my product. I actually deliver cannabis. Excellent job. Everybody's always happy to see me when I show up. It's just the perfect job. So anyways, I missed my turnoff. Google was talking to me or whatever, and I missed it. So I ended up going into a hotel parking lot. I couldn't get out because they had piled all the snow to the exit to get out of this parking lot. So I had to come back onto the main drag, and I had to turn right. So I turned right. I went down about a half a mile, made a U-turn where it was legal to make a U-turn, and came back. And as I was coming back up north on the road called Pembina, which incidentally goes all the way down to the southern United States. But anyways, as I was driving north, a police car passed me, just a cruiser car, four-door car. He had his lights on, but I really didn't pay all that much attention to him because he was on the other side of Pembina, Pembina is at that intersection or that area is 6 lanes. And between the 6 lanes, there's a barrier. So I didn't really think much. So I continued on, and I came up to the boulevard in which I had to turn left. So I sat at the light turned green. I looked ahead. All I saw was snow, and I began to turn left. I got about 15 feet into the intersection, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw red and blue cherries, the lights of a police SUV heading right for me. When I look back at it, I stopped because he was in the 3rd lane away from me. I was only entering the 2nd lane. There's like 1, 2, 3. So I was going one almost into the 2nd one, and he was in the 3rd. But for some reason, he came out of the 3rd and went into the 2nd, and he went within seconds. I couldn't do anything. He hit me head on. He hit the corner right-hand side of my car, and the next thing I know, I heard the crash in my head, but the next thing I know, I am sitting in the back seat of my car, and I'm watching my glasses. They were floating off of my head. It was a millisecond after impact. I left my body. I literally left my body, and I was watching everything from the back seat of my car, like almost the back seat part of where the passenger seat is in the back seat in relation to where the passenger seat is in the front of the car. So sort of back that way. So, the second I saw myself and debris going everywhere, because I had just looked out my right eye and I saw his cherries, my right eye was open enough to see what was watching me from the back seat. And it didn't look anything like me at all. There was no facial features to it. There was an outline of a head. There was an outline of a torso, almost, so to speak. And there was arms, but it was so fast that I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The outer edges of this being were silver light, and the very edges of this being were gold light. I should have mentioned earlier that I haven't been psychic all my life, and I've always been able to see auras. So this spiritual being had a silver lining turning to gold aura. The inside of it looked like fluid, I don't know, stars almost, silver. And it was fluid, it was moving. And so as soon as I saw that, then I went back into the back seat of my car in the spiritual being, and a light appeared between me, or the spiritual being, and my body. And it was about 6 inches high and 4 inches across. And it just appeared. And I suddenly was back in my body, and I watched this spiritual being go into this light. And then suddenly I went back into the spiritual being, and I went into the light. And it was super fast because everything around me had almost stopped in movement, in time. Like it was like, just picture a movie slowing down and slowing down, and it almost stopped. Time almost stopped. And that's the thing about the spiritual experience thing, I think, is on their side, because I've lived quite a spiritual life, I've always believed on their side, there is no time. Time doesn't exist like we see it. So anyways, so I went into this, it looked like, I don't know, because you guys are from Texas. So where I live, people like to play summer sports in the winter. So they make these huge domes of air, and they can play, basketball or golf, or not golf, but what you call it? Tennis, that kind of stuff inside of these warm domes. It kind of resembled that in a way, but the ceiling wasn't solid. It was the most brilliant reds and blues and greens, and it was like the rainbow, but it was thick and you couldn't see through it, and it was just pulsating all the way as far as I could see. It was pulsating. So, and there were other spiritual beings, and there were hundreds and hundreds of spiritual beings. So as I go through, I'm realizing who these spiritual beings are. They were everyone I ever met that had died. Some of them were brighter than others. The ones that were faded were people that had interacted in my life that I really didn't pay attention to. Maybe I might have saw them and said hi to them once in a while, who had crossed over and were waiting for me because they wanted to show me what kind of impact I actually had on their lives when they were alive. So, in that NDE group that I belong to, that you've met me in, you can look at the posts, and I describe this stuff like a little more, in writing. I get really emotional when I write stuff. Like I really try and pull people's hearts out to feel it when I write. So, now it's funny because you can't really think of a spiritual being as a body. So if you understand what a higher consciousness is, which is sort of like, the Greeks talked about this place quite a bit. It's called the ether. And the ether is where I go when I want to see that kind of stuff. Now, but it never happened before my NDE. It's only happened since then. So anyways, as you're going through, you're not actually one spiritual being anymore. You're actually consciousness, and you're going through all these other spiritual beings and you're absorbing their consciousness instantly, and you're absorbing hundreds of them at the same time as you keep going backwards and backwards into this rainbow filled dome. That's what it looked like, but it kept going back. So as my consciousness was expanding and absorbing these other spiritual beings, I knew who they were. The first person I met was my dad's sister. My dad passed away January 29th, just passed away. After my NDE, I had a vision that my father was going to die. It was undeniable. I couldn't stop it. I talked to my brother who had moved in with my parents, and I told him, don't leave my father's side. And my father was 97 when he passed. He the day before his birthday, he he snuck a beer and he drank it, and it just started shutting down his kidneys instantly. He was 97 years old. He tried to get away with having a beer. And when he stood up, he fell over and he fell down a flight of stairs. He broke 8 ribs, 2 vertebrae in his neck, broke his arm, his shoulder, and banged his head. I was fortunate that my sister went to the hospital and FaceTimed, and my wife and I got to say goodbye because he was awake for a couple of days because of the pain. They didn't want to give him a sedative right away because he would pass away. Then my sister, I don't know, she wanted the family to say goodbye to him. My father was in so much pain. I just wanted him to go because I literally was just where he was in the afterlife. That's where I was. I was in the afterlife. So after he passed, I saw an orb in my living room. And during my NDE, a spirit told me, which was his sister, said that you're going to have a visitor, but she didn't tell me who it was. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together until my dad died. And you know, I didn't shed a tear for him because I knew where he went. So the further I went back in this dome of spiritual beings who were once human, that, you know, I went probably, just to say for distance sake, maybe 1,000 feet, and I probably covered, I don't know, 20,000 people, somewhere around there that I've met because I was a reader. I'm a psychic. I read people. I've read 5,000 people since 1986. I mentioned earlier before this broadcast, I've successfully worked alongside RCMP, finding missing persons, happily, successfully brought closure to families. And that's all it is. That's what it's all about for me. So as I go further back, then I start seeing my friends. Like now I'm back around when I'm 15 or something, or 16. And I started watching my friends, you know, the ones that have died, the ones that I went to high school with that talked to me. All that stuff came right away. And it was brutal, but I kept going. And I thought that I would probably stop when I was born. I kept going. I kept going and going and going. Basically, my what do you call it? My lineature, my human lineature through time, as I experienced different lives. Do you understand? Like past lives. And it stopped in the 1700s. But the amount of information that it took probably a month of evening meditation to get it all out of my head, to understand what I had gone through. And I was only there in our realm for 4 seconds. I literally thought I was there for 40 years. And the only reason I came back is because I thought of my wife. When I was in this realm, I thought of my wife. And the next thing I knew, I was in my car. I was laying to my right hand, the right side of me, and there was smoke coming from underneath my dashboard. I literally did think I was going to be burned alive because of the smell of burning oil. It was brutal. The only words that I got out was, and I'll say it exactly the way I said it when I was in the car, is I said it this way. I said, somebody has to help me. I said it that quietly. There were approximately 35 firefighters, ambulance personnel, and police officers there because obviously I was hit by the police officer that hit me was a supervisor in the city of Winnipeg here. So everybody came to the accident scene. They closed off that intersection until 5:30 in the morning, and my accident happened at 9:00 at night. So it was a pretty major scene down there. He pushed my car 197 feet. I went on Google Maps, Google Satellite, and I measured it. He pushed me 197 feet down the road. Those pictures that I sent you of the car and his SUV, you could see where the car ended up in front of the McDonald's where the 60 kilometers an hour speed limit sign was. And you can see that from looking at Google Maps. So I did I measured it, right? So I went pretty far. And oh my gosh, when they asked me to turn the power on in my car, and I was in so much pain, I was screaming. And there was no power to my car. They couldn't get in my car. All my airbags went off. My windshield, it shattered in about 1 billion pieces. You couldn't even see in it because when you shatter tempered glass that they use nowadays for windshields, it's 2 pieces of glass stuck together by glue inside. So it doesn't shatter all over the place. But it breaks. But when it does, it turns green and you can't see through it. So they couldn't even see who I was or anything. Again, all my airbags went off. You couldn't see inside the car at all. And they told me they're going to break the window to get in my car, which they did. The fire department, those guys, man, spoke to me very calmly, very relaxed, tried to keep me calm, didn't try to move me at all for about 20 minutes. It took them 40 minutes just to get in my car, never mind removing me from my car. My whole inside of my car just exploded. The dash, everything was, the shift that I was using was in my lap. The SUV that where he hit me hit my engine, then the engine hit my transmission and pushed everything back, and everything exploded in my car. It was just a mess, a friggin' mess. So once they did get me out of the car, I was laying on my back on the ground. They cut my clothes off to, whatever. They're looking for bones sticking out of me or whatever. Thank God that didn't happen. So, and I was in and out of consciousness. I was in critical condition. I was in so much pain. I've never felt that much pain in my life. When they did eventually get me into the ambulance, they had strapped me down to a board. They had a thing around my neck, and they didn't want me to move, but I was screaming in pain, and I begged them to release the seat belts off of my ankles so I could put my knees up because I was in that much pain. Of course, they didn't know the extent of the damage inside of me, but they gave me a drug called fentanyl. And in Canada, unfortunately, fentanyl is all over the streets right now, and it's killing thousands of people. thousands of people are overdosing by this stuff. I can understand why, because when they gave it to me, I felt no pain whatsoever for about 10 minutes. It's pretty powerful stuff. Then they put me on morphine and the entire night I was on, I went for 15 or 20 x-rays. I talked to surgeons. The police came. They tried talking to me. I was just out of it on drugs. The nurses were giving me so much pain drugs that I didn't feel a thing. I was in La La Land all over again, but a different human La La Land as a drug fiend would feel. You know what I mean? So, that happened December 20th. I miraculously walked out of the hospital on the 22nd. I had 2 fractures in my pelvis, 2 fractures in my back, and a fractured tailbone. And I still walked out of there. And then after this download of information, really, that's what I'm calling it, a trip to the other side. All the people that I met, it was weird. Like if you picture a wave of consciousness, almost like a whole wave of light moving, and then in front of it there's all these little spiritual beings, and when that light hits those beings, you instantly absorb their knowledge. So I hope you guys understand that. And as I absorbed their knowledge, I saw their entire lives in an instant, and I was absorbing at any given time possibly 300, 400, 500 souls instantly as my consciousness was spreading through this realm that I visited. And the information that I received was just mind-boggling. And in fact, one of the things that really stuck with me was a guy's name by Art Biddlecombe. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who this guy was. He had passed away, I guess, maybe in the 80s or something, somewhere around there. And I didn't know who he was, but it was strong enough that I had to phone my mom, and I asked her, who is Art Biddlecombe? And my mom said, that was your father's best friend that he met in World War II. So I was meeting spirits that were connected to my family. It was amazing. I was seeing things through my dad's eyes. I was seeing things through, I wouldn't really say it was my father's eyes. It was more like my dad's sister, my dad's parents, all my dad's brothers. There's 3 of them. There was Les, Herb, and Ed, and his entire family had died because he was 97 years old when he died. So he didn't know anybody. Everybody my father knew was dead. So I met all these people that my dad, and they assured me that they will welcome my father with the love that I received when I was there, even though my father didn't believe in a spiritual afterlife at all. He was dead set, non-believer of any of that stuff, God, Jesus, any of that stuff. So it was a pretty intense visit, and since my NDE, my spiritual outlook at life, I know that everything is connected now. I know that everything that you're seeing online about light workers and that there's kind of like a cultish scenario going on there with all these different types of people. It's all related to spirituality. So a lot of people right now in our time seem to be awakening. And I think that's what happened to me is when I went into that NDE, I awoke. It was it was planned. They planned all this. I had mentioned earlier that 2 years prior to my NDE, in February, I went through a 5-day spiritual awakening that kicked the crap out of me. I was throwing up all night, and it started when I was talking with my wife, and we were laughing about something stupid, and we were in bed, and then you know how you get into those laughs where you can't breathe, and your tears are coming out of your eyes, and you're telling your partner to shut up because it's the more she says, the funnier it gets, and you just can't breathe. So we were like that, and then suddenly my brain, it just felt like my brain went forwards in my head, and I was going into a whole different world. And I got violently ill in the first probably hour and a half of it. I was spinning. I was hearing an entity in my head. He was talking to me about being human and the pain of being human. And he was saying that you have no idea. You're just, now we're going to teach you what humanity and feelings and emotions and all that kind of crap. And it lasted for 5 days. During that time, though, the 5 days, I heard a weird sort of music in my mind, and I couldn't get it out of my head. It sounded like down tempo. And then, like I said, in August of that same year, and I do believe it was the 20th, I was in a fender bender. I was turning right onto the freeway, and or not the freeway, but sort of kind of like a 70 kilometer an hour. It's not quite a freeway, but it's faster. So I was turning right, looking left, and I thought the lady in front of me had scooted out, but she didn't. She braked, and I went and I hit her because I wasn't looking. It was my fault. My airbag didn't go off, but I hit my steering wheel sideways, and my whole torso shifted, and oh my God, did that hurt. So ambulance came, took me to the hospital. This is in another province, by the way. I'm in Manitoba, and this happened in British Columbia. I was in British Columbia visiting my parents. So just by myself, I just decided to go one day and drive and see them. So that happened. And that spiritual awakening kicked off 6 weeks of unbelievable downloads, I guess you can say. And again, the music came back. From February to August, I went about my business and didn't even hear a thing. Nothing in my head. Looking around, I would see auras and stuff. This is just my regular everyday stuff that I see anyways. So, whatever. And then that 6 weeks, it was a week after that fender bender. I was at a friend's house, staying at a friend's house. I was talking to my wife online, and then I heard the music in my head. And I thought, oh, shit. I said, no way. And she's going, what? I go, I can hear that music again. It's starting. And then I went into like a trance. She recorded an hour's worth of what I was saying. And I listened to it twice so far. And it sounds like I'm channeling almost. You hear about spiritual mediums that channel other spirits. That's what it sounds like. And I saw a lot of future events, which I sort of touched on with you earlier.
Yeah.
Do you want me to explain to the people what I saw?
Well, I want to first go back and clear up some things about your experience.
Okay.
And then I would like to get into your downloads. But let me take you back there because
Sure.
for sure, there's one thing that I'm not clear on is you
Okay.
had your accident,
Yeah.
and it sounds like to me that you popped out of your body into your back seat,
I did.
and then was sitting next to you a being that was lined with silver and gold and kind of a fluid body.
Yes. The body was, that was my spirit.
That was your spirit next to you.
Yes.
So you're
Yeah.
out of your body, and then you're already out of your body, and but next to you is your spirit. I thought it was a different spirit.
No. I'm driving,
Mhm.
and in behind the back seat on the
Mhm.
where the passenger side of, where the passenger side would be in the front,
Mhm.
like on the right hand side. In that back seat, in my back seat, that was my spirit that came out of body.
Right.
So that was an out of body experience.
Right.
But that spiritual being could see my human body,
Right.
and the light that appeared between us was, I don't know.
So that was kind of like a portal. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was a gate to the other side.
Right. So what you're saying is that when you popped out of your body, you were in the back seat. The way that you looked or appeared was this kind of outlined silverly gold, like a being that was kind of translucent. That was you, and
Yes.
your consciousness was there, and that's
Yes.
what you look like.
Yes.
Okay. And so you went from there, you popped into the portal, and then went to the dome-like place.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And the colors, like, I don't even know where you could look to see the colors that I saw.
Would you say that there were colors there that don't even exist on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I found it interesting also that you could only go far back in your timeline to the 1700s.
Yeah.
Do you think that was? Do you have any idea why? Like, were you
Yeah,
on?
I do.
Were you on
I
another
know.
planet before that, or you
No,
just weren't
no.
born as a spirit yet?
No. I found out through, like, I was adopted, and I met my birth mother. My birth mother gave me my family tree, and it goes back to 1752. And that's when our people, and they were a spiritual people, they were called Quakers. They were the most spiritual people of that era, and that's when they came to America. And that's where I started. So I've those downloads that I told you that I received on the weekend, this past weekend, brought me back to 1200 BC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my wife, she is 3000 BC.
Now,
And I know every life she had.
Did you see her lives, or did she see them, or both of you?
I did.
You saw
I
hers.
did.
Okay.
Yeah. She's trying to comprehend what I'm telling her, and it's driving her nuts.
All right. There was another question I thought I had about your experience. This is the first time I've ever heard your experience, and I think it's really interesting how you would just absorb everybody else's life experience. Would you say that's almost like what maybe people would say, hey, we're all connected as one?
Yes. You have to understand, my concept now is spirituality as a whole. Spirituality is alive. It's alive. That's simple as I could put it. Consciousness. How do I say this? Regular Joes, regular everyday people that are doing their everyday. And then people come online and they start seeing stuff, talking about stuff, spiritual stuff. Most of those people only see the surface. They don't go down very many levels of spirituality. In fact, I talked to a guy today in Toronto. He was telling me about Buddha, that Buddha got a spiritual download as well. And when he went and told everybody, nobody listened to him. So, and that was way back in history. So when you look at technology today, unfortunately, technology is taking away people's basic intuition. They don't rely on their intuition anymore. It's a damn shame. They rely on Facebook games to tell them what their intuition is. That's not right. That's terrible. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
That's okay. I want to take you here. Can you describe the experience of what it's like to get a download? And then afterwards, tell us some of the things you saw in your downloads.
oh, geez. Downloads are, all right. I induced them, I think. I listen to a type of music called liquid drum and bass. And I listen to it on my headphones. And I listen to it very loud. And what it does, what I think it's doing, it vibrates. And you're going to see this all over Facebook too, because people talk about it everywhere. People are mentioning hertz levels and vibrations. So this music, I think, intentionally boggles your mind in a way that have you ever heard of that music? I think it's called 8D or something. And it spins around you as you're listening to it on headphones. That's some crazy shit. You try it out. So the hertz levels in the music, the vibration, what I think it's doing is vibrating two little nodes underneath my cranium where my spinal cord begins, where my brain is. There's these two little things. And I think what's happened was, or is happening, is the more I listen to this type of music, and I call it my meditation. It vibrates, and those two little nodulars in the bottom base of my brain, everyone has them, secrete a chemical that spreads throughout my brain and is basically rewiring my brain. A download. If you want to talk about ETs, go right ahead, because that's where it all comes from, really. So, but you have to understand, we're in a human vessel. So our spirits will ascend. So, I don't know. So ask me another question, because I've lost my train of thought.
Well, that's fascinating. I wonder if that type of music, when you listen to it loud and it's loud and you're hearing it and it's a certain frequency, a certain tempo, it just shuts down the chatter of your own mind.
It does. It
just quiets your own mind, and then it's almost like a mantra, and a musical mantra in a way. It's just like you're just hearing this rhythm and sound over and over. It shuts down your chatter, and then at some point, it's almost like a meditation.
It is. That's what I call it. I call it meditation.
So then at that point, when you have a download, you just have like an aha moment, like, hey, I just had this realization that I know all this stuff now.
No, it's I hear music. I hear a weird down tempo sound in my mind. And once I hear that, then the downloads begin. And what it reminds me of is a Big Ben, the clock. If you were standing in the gears of Big Ben, the clock, and you were listening to the seconds, but slowed right down, that's what you would hear. It sounds like a countdown. That's what it sounds like to me. So once I start hearing that type of music, then I'm in for a download. And sometimes the downloads last 7 or 8 hours. It's I can't stop them once they start.
And when
I don't, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So when you're having a download at that point, are you just feel like you have this knowingness of all this stuff? All of a sudden, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this. Is that kind of how it works out?
Yeah, I learned quantum physics in about 3 days. 3 days. I Do you know the ancient spiral graphs that are over stone monuments all over the planet?
Kind of, maybe.
Okay, now if you put a line through that, a straight line through that, and then you add a curve to it, you've just created math. And that math is everywhere. It's in everything. It's in eggs. It's in pine cones. It's in flowers. It's those numbers. And those numbers, I can't remember the name of those numbers now that I think about it.
It sounds like you're describing like your fractals and maybe the
Yes, that's
Fibonacci
it.
numbers.
That's the Fibonacci numbers. The Fibonacci numbers are the light of God. That's part of being spiritual. Once you start realizing all this stuff around you, nature, and quantum physics, looking at the atom, looking at the atom's behavior. Stephen Hawking, actually, I just sort of saw some of his stuff the other day. Kind of like I saw him on YouTube, so I just watched it, and I understood everything this guy was saying. Everything, all his mathematical equations, everything, and he was correct in his. So was Einstein. Einstein was correct too. So I looked at all this information. I got everything. I was downloading stuff that, back in 2018 when I first got those first spiritual experiences, I was seeing mathematics, but I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. It was just endless amounts of math equations going by me like I was walking down a street and there were graffitied all over the wall. That's what it looked like. And they were just flying by me in my mind. And then, about a month ago, I figured it out. I know what it means.
What are some of the most impactful things that you've learned in your downloads?
The most impactful things.
The things that just blew you away and you still keep thinking about them over and over. It's just almost life-changing ideas.
Well, technology for one thing. When I figured out what 5D was and the way it's changing and will change everything, you're aware that Elon Musk has a chip that you could put in a brain and download information into it. Now imagine taking that chip and putting it in a robot that Japan has made that looks human. You have an instant duplicate of who you are, just like that. But there's no soul. Think about that. That's where this is going. Mm-hmm. So that kind of blew me away. This morning, actually, I watched Keanu Reeves and that other guy who played his buddy in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They were racing electric Porsches. It was a commercial for Porsche. They're electric. Find it on YouTube. It's going to blow you away what's coming. The technology that is coming because of 5D. Oh my God. We're in for the most spectacular ride of. This is the Jetsons. It's coming. It is. And so that was pretty mind blowing to figure all that out. I looked at all the bullshit with 5G towers are going to cause cancer and all that bullshit. There are people on this planet that don't want that. They don't want to see technology. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And that's all the people you see that are causing flack about it. They're afraid of the next level, as far as I'm concerned. There are other things that are scaring the hell out of me is because of YouTube. YouTube, if you remember, went down a while back. Remember that?
I don't remember. Maybe you mean the entire platform?
Yes. It totally shut down for about. I don't think it was very long. I think it was only a couple of hours, but it freaked out enough people that whatever. So YouTube, I find, has deleted an awful lot of stuff that before that time, you can find that you can't find now. A lot of spiritual stuff. But the stuff that I'm seeing now on YouTube, especially ghost hunters, and the fact that they're finding more and more videos of or filming more and more of these things called black shadow people. That's an interesting phenomena that is becoming more and more evident, and TikTok as well shows a lot of that stuff, and it's scaring the dickens out of a lot of people. But I think I know why, and I'll get to that later. But that's kind of freaked me out. The biggest thing that's freaked me out started in 2018 with our planet changing, and it's changing faster than scientists predicted. My first spiritual experience, I saw a terrible storm, a hurricane, hit the United States, and it literally went right into Canada. After it was finished with Canada, it went over the northern part of the Great Lakes. It went across New York, and then it curved back up into the Atlantic Ocean. It went over towards Ireland and England and everything, slammed into that. Now, here's the thing. My psychic abilities showed me stages of that storm. And this storm is not anything that is new. This storm has been talked about for hundreds of years by psychics, by mediums, by whatever. So, but a few things needed to happen. And one of those things was the Atlantic Ocean needed to start to heat up. And when I started seeing all this shit, the Atlantic Ocean was in the cooling stage, but not anymore. The Atlantic on the coast of Africa is warming at an alarming rate. And all the hurricanes, the big ones that hit the United States, they start in basically where the Congo is, in the jungles of Africa. And right now there's a volcano that is active in the Congo, and it is erupting lava, and it's going to cause all kinds of damage. If it blows in the Congo, it's going to kill a lot of people. But conditions need to be right for a mega hurricane to leave that part of Africa, the jungles of Africa. That's where it forms. But as soon as it gets out to the Atlantic, really nothing happens because the Atlantic's been cool. But now that the Atlantic is in a warming trend, which is fact, you guys can look that up now, it's fact, that hurricane's going to grow. And it's going to be big. In fact, there's going to be bigger and bigger hurricanes hitting and destroying, flooding, winds. I'm telling everyone that I know to move at least 1,000 feet above sea level. Now, just pack your shit and go. Do it. Because when this thing hits, when the big one hits, as they say, I've talked to other psychics about this. We're as high as 700 kilometers an hour winds. 400 kilometer hour winds on a tornado strips the ground from everything. The only thing it leaves is soil. That's it. So think about 700 kilometers in a hurricane, the eye of the hurricane especially. And this thing is a monster. It's probably 2,500 kilometers across when it hits the United States, and it takes out everything. So let's not talk about that, but it's a global storm.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this. How have you changed since you're in DE?
Unfortunately, I'm really grumpy around my wife because I'm frustrated because everything I say to her, her mind is she can't process the information that I can. and I'm having a hard time. I'm frustrated talking to her. And I hate repeating myself, and it's just pissing me off emotionally. And I apologize to her constantly about being so frustrated, and I feel sorry for her because since my accident, I've been basically crippled, and she does everything for me. And I turn around and I treat her like a terrible, terrible person. And every time I do, I always apologize to her. I say, please forgive me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't understand all the shit that I'm seeing in my mind because I'm in a full throttle mode that I've never been in before. My NDE experience has not stopped. So my wife, that's the biggest issue. And that's a tough one. And then I have a granddaughter that we homeschool. So she's here every day too. And she's 7, but she's starting to understand when Papa gets upset, so she just leaves. She doesn't even, whatever. It's not that I yell and scream. And the thing is, I yell and scream to myself, but my wife really thinks it's at her, but it's not. It's my frustrations. I scream at myself. I hurt myself. I pinch myself. I even slap my head, trying to slow down so I can have a conversation with my wife. It's a terrible, terrible thing to go through when someone that you love is not at that level of spirituality. It's just, I'm trying my best. I've got her listening to Liquid Drum and Bass now. She's spiritual in her own way. She's basically a practicing witch. Herbal. She knows all about herbs. She knows about medicines, plants, and all that kind of stuff. She's doing pretty good, but her mind capacity isn't anywhere near mine, and she's frustrated, and so am I.
If you met someone else who had an NDE, let's say 1 week ago, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a good question. Geez, you got me on that one. I would tell them that you're not alone. I would tell them that there are other people that are going through what you're going through. Please reach out. Go to those groups on Facebook. Find the people that you need to find and let them help you. The hardest thing for any human being to do is ask for help. That's what we have to do in order to not go insane. I you know what, I don't even know. I might be insane. Like, that just could be a way of putting it. I was told also that a lot of people that do have these type of experiences are actually schizophrenic, bipolar, autistic, all kinds of disorders, and Western medicine uses, they medicate them. They put them into institutions, which in some cases could be a good thing because then you're going to meet other people that are like you. So, but it's a shitty way to go. You need to reach out for help and keep asking for help. Don't do the shit that I did, because I reached out to a priest today and he threatened to phone the cops on me. And I thought, you know what? Up yours, buddy. That's what religion is to me. I don't I don't know anything about religion, really, and I don't want to know anything about it, really, because religion and spirituality are totally two different things. And which would, I'm going to sort of lightly touch on this. There's a crop circle with a gray holding a disc that's been, it's been deciphered. There's a message. And I believe he is the one who is spiritually ascending humanity, plain and simple. And if you look at his species of alien, they're everywhere. They're all through history, as far back as you can go. They're in stone. I was a stone carving man. I saw them in my early career. They're in Egypt. They're in every civilization as far back as man goes and beyond. Because basically, I think we're his children. I really do. All the abductions you hear about, the human body is a vessel that the spiritual travel in. My spirit travels in this vessel, and they come and they upgrade our vessels. They upgrade our brain. They upgrade all that kind of stuff so that the next generation becomes better. And he's showing me all this stuff in my mind. That's where the downloads are coming from. And they're doing it for a reason, because they are spirituality. They are love. They are all that is good. But unfortunately, media, governments, and everything else has kept this from us. I don't know why. I have no idea why. It's terrible. It's just absolutely shameful.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to switch gears with you here because we're running out of time.
Right.
And maybe we'll get you back to continue this talk. But
well, I'd love to come back.
Great. But before we go, a couple of things. So you're on Facebook in the groups. Do you have your own Facebook page?
I do. I go by Watson Grover Psychic.
Okay.
That's my page in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
All right.
That's where I'm located. And for anyone who wants a reading, this really isn't about financial gain or anything like that. I just really want to help people.
If people just want to reach out to you and chat with you about your experience, are you open to that, or are you more of a private person?
I'm a private person.
Okay.
Since I started posting in that group on Facebook on NDE, I get about 20 or 30 friend requests an hour. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I opened a TikTok account where I talk about my stuff, which if you want to, I'd rather talk to you about it, but I don't really want to say who I am on TikTok either. So, this is the Watson Grover Psychic. It's my page. If you can find it, message me. We'll talk.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, do you have one last message that you can share with the audience?
The time is now to wake up. There are millions of people around the world that are being awoken. There are people called light workers. There are people that are mediums. There's a lot of BS in there, but if you find the right people, especially Native people, East Indian people, monks, all that kind of thing, they know all about this. They know all about it. Western society, it's been erased. They know everything. If you could reach out to somebody like that and you're going through NDE experience, they will help you. I love everyone. I want everyone to prosper through this.
That's great. Thank you for that message. And Watson, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.